Hi there, everybody. My name is Kate, and welcome to my channel, Chinergy Awakens Naturally. So let's talk about dichotomy. Oh God, let's not. We often think that it often means, and because it does, opposition. That if we have two held thoughts in the same space and they are directly oppositional to one another, one of them must be untrue or is a BS lie or a manipulation or something, and we can't actually hold two states of polarity and both of those things be true. It really makes people angry sometimes, depending on what two states we're holding. We may look, oh no, I don't want to be holding that one. And that's fine. At least being able to observe the state, stand in that in observation is witness to I'm standing in the midst of looking at two states of polarity. And there is actually a Catholic priest who was also a mathematician, a cosmologist, and a lot of ists that were besides priests. And he was very riveted on the universe and his discussion with himself about mechanics and what Einstein had to say about the space-time continuum and the fabric of the universe. And he said, roughly, his name was Lemaitre, I think, was his name. The father of the Big Bang he's attributed with kind of discovering that because he put some belief into what Einstein had said. And he said there are two ways to approach the truth, and I choose to take both. So he actually lived with the idea that no, we don't really quantumly have a way, we don't have, with our general relativity understanding, we don't really have a way to make some of this parlay into, what we're seeing out in space. This is really weird. This is strange. And in, early 1900s, that was the best that they had. They didn't have the Hubble telescope. They didn't have the James Webb, and they didn't have all of the intel coming from outer space. They were making a lot of rudimentary observations and got a lot of distance on that, quite remarkably, just more with, being willing to expand the idea of what is that dark matter thing. Anything we don't know what it is, we just kind of throw the dark in front of it until we figure it out. Well, he had a pretty good handle. Einstein did, and apparently Lemaitre, I think, is the man's name. That's George Lemaitre, essentially, is his name, French Catholic priest, I believe. That it doesn't matter more than anything is that was verbalized over 100 years ago, and well before that, many times over in many prophecies. It's just that when hard science starts talking, the nerdy types who rely on science and statistics and real stuff, to explain the woo-woo stuff, we might stand up a little bit more and say, oh, I want to know about that, that I can hold two states of polarity, which is what this game is about in the matrix of, Earth currently, when we aren't sure which vibrational field we're standing in. We don't even know that there is one. We may be standing in the matrix, not fully understand, and we're getting distracted in all kinds of places, doing all kinds of things, getting wrapped up in stories, and the matrix just looks like it's for real, and we don't even consider. Einstein, I'd say, was brilliant on many levels. His genius took him more into the willingness to expand his vision of what genius looks like, in a world where mathematics and, physics, etc., all these things that he was starting to cultivate in his mind and really open up and expand. As he was continuing to do that, he was ahead, of his time, and he was planting the seeds forward that we could pull into quantum physics now, if we'd like to think of it less as the either or, and the marrying up of relative ideas with some specific quantum marrying that interacts with that real idea in the quantum space in very, generalized kind of specific ways, if we kind of can see some patterns. And until we start seeing those, we're going to call stuff dark matter, antimatter, a lot of stuff that sounds like it's in direct opposition too. And that's just a matter of perception. These men were willing over 100 years ago to kind of peek into the field and say, yeah, there's more going on here than we can scientifically explain. And Einstein, I don't know how much about the Catholic priest that was multi-talented in, other disciplines. I'm not sure about him specifically, but he was at least willing to entertain the thought that Einstein was looking to extend the science that could back up the weird stuff that he couldn't explain. And when he would put out papers, if people couldn't go there with him to even get past the mind bind of, oh, that's not real, that's not possible. By current standards, the wheel wasn't doing a whole lot for us until it was, the Industrial Revolution was really eye-opening, wasn't it? Wow, we can do a lot of shit here that maybe we didn't know we could. So But if somebody hadn't broached the idea, if old Henry Ford hadn't said, there's a real better way we could be doing this, I'm sure, let me find it. It's the innovation of what do we do with the newer thought of how we could better use this knowledge. And a lot of times that, the crossroad is what the priest was talking about, in my humble opinion. There's two roads to get to truth, always. There's at least two, because the road to Damascus, the road to enlightenment, the middle way is truly about, let me see, a full 360. If I can stand stable and look around my environment, and take it all in, then I have an accurate assessment. If I get hung up somewhere and believe that this is the only reality there is, I won't even consider over here that duality could exist and be vital, and it is absolutely necessary. In a polarity, you're going to need both sides of that to keep dictating what the middle ground would be. Now that middle ground is changing. It used to be heavily weighted towards, we really do dark stuff here on this planet, and it's not sustaining itself anymore, as you can see. It looks to me like it's falling apart, because that is what's happening. The entropy is here of, those are just, they're formed on sand. Those institution of barbaric dictatorial control and stuff, hijacking people's emotions and playing emotional terrorism and, doing all this stuff and frightening people on a level that they just can't handle anymore. Those days are coming to a close. 555, we're changing, vitally alive with change. That, the human consciousness is becoming way more aware of itself where it is, and anywhere where someone couldn't follow Einstein 100 years ago and isn't willing to consider something different now based on the fact that there's a lot more people, reaching out into the cosmos and going, that could possibly be quite differently explained if I was willing to look at science differently, or if I was willing to look at religion differently, if I was willing to look at life, period. If I was willing to look differently, find another lens, turn the kaleidoscope a little, grab one. Let's start with that. Let's just get that flat 3D thing going, in a whole separate, multi-dimensional, at least understanding. And I meet people all the time that they can't even go there because the instability of all the sand that they've built their stuff on. When you're building a story from a book that somebody told you and it's already unstable, but you don't know it, you're building all these paradigms and all these understandings of ourselves, our end game, where we're going when we're done. And there's too much falling apart for us not to all be questioning that at least a little bit. Most. And those that aren't questioning it at all, they're deep into the chess game of the bullshit on this planet of what's currently happening, which, okay, well, that's a Hunger Games evolution that, no thanks. Since I jumped out of it, I'm not looking to train real hard for a District 1 and 2 experience. Even when I know that I'm going to win, it's a battle to the death. It's a duel, and there's no honorable, turfing out of people who have greater work to do here besides be the pawn and the chess piece for other, individuals who think that's their work, is to make sure they always have, adequate chess pieces on the field that make it fun to watch all the gruesome display of, basically human dogfighting. We're being thrown in as bait dogs all over the place, and yet we don't understand. To watch the news today is to watch parody. To watch the news 100 years ago was to watch parody, equally. However, it's just that the parody is even more distressing because Stranger Things, holy shit, this is our real life. This isn't just a theoretical thing in people's minds anymore, where one day after 2012, shit's gonna get real. It's really real. It's here, And if we weren't really ever paying attention, 808, wanting to pay attention or wanting to know something differently, we really aren't making it through too many days without our psyche being rocked with something different, period. You're going to experience a different reality because reality is changing for all of us. Other players are pulling triggers and levers and stuff, then, okay, then my reality changed on that day when that action was taken with that entire region of the world, or in my region of my life, that action was taken against me specifically. It can feel very hostile and instantly, especially when we're being infused with the idea that, boom, the Hunger Games are on and your boom is next, Gun up, let's get busy with the game. And meanwhile, Einstein's quietly, doing his work amidst all the bullshit 100 years ago and more, and coming to conclusions that today are still relevant and, not just relevant, they're absolutely necessary in my world in order to give me the structural framework for what I'm dealing with for realsy, instead of getting stuck, on my lunch hour watching the soap opera of the Earth right at the moment. I'm thinking there must be some contingent of soap opera watchers in outer space somewhere, got their popcorn hard and going, I wonder how this is going to end, man. They don't seem to get it yet. And yet we do. Those of us that do now, we understand that quantum action changes quantumly, and butterfly effect, motors that through a quantum wave at exponential rates. The more that we believe that, the belief means the intention is pure. and the energy we're sourcing to pattern into that action and that quantum wave that we're starting the, that we're going to have a quantum wave and a nice butterfly effect, Mandela its way around, and wow, this time next year, nothing looks like it does today in 6 minutes, in 6 years, and whatever amount of time. When we start shifting, we can see the immediate changes if we're looking, if we're trying, if we're even, plugged into that divine matrix and unplugged from the soap opera. If we're in the soap opera playing our designated role, I don't want to be a walk-in on somebody else's bullshit opera, soap opera or opera. Thank you very much. I don't want to be pimped as a tool and a chess piece when my daily life is mine. There's no autonomy in moving at the hands of somebody else who's got a hold of my life, thinking that I want to go in that direction of survival. And if I'm running that direction for survival, thinking that's the only way to play this game, well, in that game it is. However, here's the real secret, is that you don't got to be playing the game. You don't have to be playing that game. However, if you're waiting for Pan Am or Districts 1, 2, or anybody else, or Hamish to let you on in secret that, yeah, you don't have to be in this one. Oh no, you have to be in this one because you have to know how to break it. You have to survive this one so that you can get through and break it and still play with integrity. Get down to the last straw and say, oh yeah, we're going to break this game right here by just not playing by your rules. We're both going out. Give me my little, my berry. And then I'm not doing that. I'm not losing my integrity. I'm not losing it, because me playing your game one more second, the quantum field isn't going to generate anything except more me being taken out 11-11. And I'd rather, I'm not willing to sacrifice in this Joan of Arc moment. I'm not willing to sacrifice my integrity or my self-respect, or my little cohort here, who really isn't going to make it. He couldn't make it on his own. And I'm not going to take out the weaker one of the two of me, of our team, because this is the balance of our team. You made us come in together. We're going in together. We're leaving together. 2 in, 2 out. The masculine and feminine. She saved all of herself by saving the aspects that were left after this brutal war. So, when we get to that point in our consciousness and our psyche and in our awareness, we're willing to consider dark matter and antimatter and anti-everything a little bit differently, because the anti-stuff, whatever, when you you're going to have an opponent. And when you are willing to look at, I'm not doing that. There's a 13th district erected immediately. And if you look around, there's a lot of 13th districts already standing up going, hi, we were waiting 12-12 for you. Thank you. Come on over here. This is where we do our stuff now. And we follow laws of physics. Sure, we have to. We're required to follow the laws of physics. We don't get a chance to fly all of a sudden and, defy anti-gravity. We don't get to go that direction just because we want it. We actually have to work and, gain the knowledge, the awareness. And most of that, honestly, is opening the mind to the experience and allowing the thought that, wow, the Big Bang, we get rooted on a story about Adam, Eve, or otherwise, or Sophia, or all this other stuff. We're going to be reading books and really rationalizing, well, must be what that is. Okay. Meanwhile, my life's the Hunger Games. I'm going to want to stop the game and get out of it altogether and make sure that my particular mission on the earth is to make sure that shit isn't happening to anybody else's life either. Whether they're District 1 or 2 or not, doesn't matter. The game is no longer relevant, and it's absolutely not tolerable in the laws of the universe that we play this sadistic shit with one another. We've just gotten away with it for a really long time because 1313, that was where we are in that process. And now that entropy's here and entropying away, wheat and chaff, however you want to see the separation and bifurcation, I see it, and if other people don't, then I can't convince them of that. They're not experiencing that polarity like that, then they're going to make the choices to do whatever they'd like to do and make one or the other, typically, as that man said. And I choose, same as that philosopher, that Catholic priest, and that magician, wow, mathematician. He could have been a magician for all I know too. He was a magician in that he understood the polarity, and he could witness it, give it credence on both sides, and understand, I'm going to consciously choose, not this stuff. I'm going to consciously choose to come over here and embrace the fact that there's just stuff I don't know. And I'm not going to let that frighten me from investigating what I can know and what I do know and what I'm discovering. And in this polarity, I'm learning so much more by continuing to look for reference points from the middle rather than an opposition. There's a lot of anti out there. There's a lot of, fighting about it. Then, let's skip that. And I'll just get my middle way and be looking around 360 rather than just linear in one direction. We're going to make this a multi-directional, multi-dimensional instantly by opening our mind up to the possibility that, wow, that even exists. Because in my reality, and in lots of other people too, and in theirs, that did exist, and it does. So anyway, I hope that's helpful for you in some way, and I hope you enjoy your day today, no matter what you're doing. Get inside, because you're divine. Oh my goodness, it's absolutely fine, and it takes care of you if you listen to it all the time. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you again next time. Goodbye, my beautiful friends.